The conference room on the 45th floor of Morgan Healthcare Solutions erupted into chaos. 7-year-old Sophie Morgan hurled a stack of IPO folders across the polished mahogany table, her small face twisted in fury, papers scattered like wounded birds landing on the Italian leather shoes of stunned executives. "You don't understand anything," she screamed at the fifth therapist that month, a woman who now backed toward the door, clutching her designer briefcase like a shield. Olivia Morgan stood motionless by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her tailored Armani suit perfect, her expression carved from ice. Only her eyes betrayed her, tired, desperate, failing. Through the glass wall, three major investors waited in the reception area, their expressions darkening at the commotion. When the therapist fled, Olivia whispered to the empty air, "Can no one handle this child?" Eleanor Wright, silver-haired co-founder and Olivia's mentor, entered the room with the quiet authority of her 68 years. Her eyes took in the destruction, then settled on Olivia. "We have 60 days until the IPO," Eleanor said, her voice low enough that only Olivia could hear. "If you can't get your personal situation under control, the board will request you take a leave of absence." Olivia's throat tightened. The company she'd built from her husband's blueprint, her legacy, hanging by a thread because she couldn't reach her own daughter. 43 floors below, in a cramped Brooklyn apartment where the radiator clanged and neighbors argued through paper-thin walls, Nathan Reed faced his own morning crisis. The envelope in his hand contained two bills, Mia's asthma medication or this month's rent. He couldn't pay both. He set the bills aside and moved with practiced gentleness as he braided 6-year-old Mia's honey-brown hair. His hands, scarred from years of surgical procedures before his fall from grace, now calloused from mop handles, worked with the precision that once made him Mayo Clinic's youngest attending surgeon. "Daddy, can I bring my butterfly book to school today?" Mia asked, her voice still raspy from her latest asthma attack. "Of course, butterfly girl," Nathan answered, securing her braid with a blue elastic. "Just remember your inhaler's in the front pocket of your backpack. If you feel tight in your chest—" "I know, Daddy," she interrupted, having heard the instructions hundreds of times. 2 puffs, count to 10, tell a teacher. They took the subway together, her small hand in his, until he dropped her at PS 118, 3 blocks from Morgan Tower where he worked. Once he'd worn surgical scrubs and saved lives with microsecond decisions. Now he pushed a mop cart through marble halls, invisible to the executives who rushed past in their $1,000 shoes. He didn't mind. Invisibility had advantages. He could observe without being observed, could listen to the rhythm of this strange world where money moved like water and people treated each other like chess pieces. A world where companies like Morgan Healthcare Solutions could deny treatment to patients with rare diseases. Patients like Sarah, his wife, because their conditions weren't cost-effective to treat. Olivia Morgan's mornings began in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, where silence was purchased by the square foot and maintained by staff who knew better than to speak unless spoken to. She'd wake at 5 a.m., run 4 miles on a treadmill that cost more than most cars, then stand under a rainfall shower that never quite washed away the exhaustion. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a woman of 35 who could pass for 28. Excellent bone structure, disciplined eating, strategic Botox, beautiful and absolutely alone. By 7, she'd be reviewing reports on the latest vaccine development, the centerpiece of their upcoming IPO. $200 million in funding hinged on its success. Her phone buzzed with messages she answered in clipped sentences. She was brilliant, ruthless, successful, and utterly incapable of reaching the daughter who hadn't spoken a word since watching her father's private jet crash 6 months ago during their FaceTime call. Matthew's last words before the screen went black. "I love you both more than anything. Remember that." Sophie had stopped talking after the crash, stopped smiling, Stop trusting that the world was anything but a place where people you loved vanished into smoke and wreckage. Olivia had hired trauma specialists from Johns Hopkins, therapists trained in Switzerland, nannies with credentials that read like doctoral dissertations. Sophie had outlasted them all. The first shift in this carefully maintained parallel existence came on a Tuesday afternoon. Nathan sat in the janitor's break room on the 12th floor during his lunch break. Mia was having a bad day at school, asthma acting up again, and he'd promised to call. He took out his phone and dialed, putting it on speaker while he ate his peanut butter sandwich. "Hi, Daddy," Mia answered, her breathing thankfully steady. "Hey, Butterfly, how's your chest feeling?" "Better. Miss Jenkins let me sit inside during recess." Nathan frowned. His daughter shouldn't have to miss recess because he couldn't afford better medication. "That's good. Want me to sing our song?" "Yes, please," she answered, her voice brightening. Nathan began singing Blackbird by the Beatles, the lullaby Sarah used to sing when pregnant with Mia. His voice drifted through the ventilation system, soft and warm as candlelight, carrying upward through the building's central shaft. On the 45th floor, Sophie Morgan sat curled in a corner of her mother's executive office, another therapist trying unsuccessfully to engage her. The woman had brought puppets this time. Sophie stared through her, beyond her, into the middle distance where she kept her pain. Then she heard it, a man's voice singing, muffled but distinct. Blackbirds singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. Sophie's head snapped up. Her father used to sing this song. It was playing on the plane's sound system when her small fists clenched, then relaxed. For the first time in months, something reached through the wall she'd built around her heart. She stood up suddenly, startling the therapist, and walked out of the office. The receptionist, busy on a call, didn't notice the small girl in the blue dress slipping into the stairwell. Floor by floor, Sophie descended, following the voice like a beacon in darkness. The security alert came just as Olivia was finishing a conference call with potential investors. "What do you mean she's gone?" Olivia demanded, panic rising in her throat as she rushed from the boardroom. "How does a 7-year-old disappear from the executive floor?" Security cameras showed Sophie entering the stairwell, but lost her after the 30th floor. The entire security team mobilized, searching floor by floor while Olivia's heart threatened to pound out of her chest. After 40 agonizing minutes, a guard's voice crackled over the radio. "We found her, Ms. Morgan, 12th floor, janitor's break room." When Olivia burst through the door of the break room, the last thing she expected to see was Sophie sitting cross-legged on the floor beside a little girl her own age, folding origami butterflies while a janitor watched them with a gentle smile. More shocking still, Sophie was talking. "Like this?" Sophie asked, creasing a blue paper square. "Perfect," the other little girl said. "Now fold the wings down." Olivia stood frozen, unable to process the scene before her. Sophie, her Sophie who hadn't spoken in 6 months, was making paper butterflies and speaking in full sentences. The janitor looked up, his expression changing as he recognized her. He stood quickly. "I'm sorry, Ms. Morgan. We didn't know she was your daughter. She said she heard singing and followed it here." Olivia barely registered his words. She was staring at Sophie, who had finally noticed her presence. The little girl's face closed like a door slamming shut. "Sophie," Olivia whispered, taking a step forward. Sophie clutched her paper butterfly tighter, shrinking against the other child. "It's okay," the janitor said to Sophie, his voice carrying that same gentle warmth that had drawn her here. "Your mom was worried about you." Something in his tone, the absence of fear or judgment, made Sophie nod slightly. "I made a butterfly," she said to Olivia, her first words to her mother since the funeral. Tears threatened to spill down Olivia's cheeks, but years of boardroom discipline held them back. "It's beautiful," she managed. Security guards appeared at the door, but Olivia waved them away. "I'm Nathan Reed," the janitor said, extending his hand. "This is my daughter, Mia." Olivia took his hand automatically. It was callous but steady, and something about his grip, confident, certain, seemed at odds with his uniform. "Thank you for taking care of her," Olivia said, struggling to find appropriate words for this unprecedented situation. "Sophie's welcome any time," Mia piped up, earning a sharp look from her father. "I apologize for the interruption," Nathan said. "We were on a call during my lunch break." Olivia's gaze swept over them both, the janitor in his worn uniform, the little girl in second-hand clothes, and for the first time in years, she saw people instead of personnel. "Please come to my office at 4 o'clock, Mr. Reed," she said, her CEO voice returning. "We need to discuss this." Nathan stood in Olivia Morgan's office, refusing the offered chair. The view behind her desk showcased Manhattan in its afternoon glory. But his attention remained fixed on the woman who could end his employment with a word. Eleanor Wright sat in a corner, watching him with sharp eyes. "I should fire you for allowing my daughter into an unauthorized area," Olivia began. "Olivia," Eleanor cautioned. "But," Olivia continued, "that's the first time Sophie has spoken since the accident." Nathan nodded. Children often find it easier to communicate in spaces where they don't feel pressured to perform. Olivia's eyes narrowed. "That's an interesting observation for a janitor." "I've worked with children before," he replied simply. Eleanor stepped forward. "Mr. Reed, our security team ran a background check when you were hired, but it only goes back 5 years. Where were you before Chicago Memorial's maintenance department?" Nathan's jaw tightened. "Does it matter?" "It does if you're spending time with the CEO's daughter," Eleanor said. "Sophie doesn't need another overpriced expert," Nathan said, his patience finally cracking. "She needs someone who sees her, not her diagnosis or her difficulties. Someone without an agenda." Olivia stood, her expression hardening. "I'm prepared to triple your current salary for a special assignment. Help Sophie communicate. Spend time with her." Nathan's laugh held no humor. "With respect, Ms. Morgan, you can't buy what your daughter needs." "Name your price, then." "There is no price," Nathan said simply. "But if you're asking me to spend time with your daughter, I'll do it. Not for money." "Then what do you want?" Olivia asked, genuine confusion in her voice. "Everyone wants something." Nathan considered his answer carefully. "Mia's school lost funding for their music program, and your daughter needs more time with you, not with me." The words hit Olivia like a physical blow. "You don't want money for yourself?" she asked incredulously. "I want my daughter to have music in her life," Nathan replied. "And I want your daughter to heal. Sometimes it's that simple." As Nathan left, Marcus Holt, the senior VP and former partner of Olivia's late husband, entered. He watched Nathan walk away with suspicious eyes. "Who was that?" he asked. "Sophie's new friend," Olivia answered, still processing the encounter. "The janitor?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "He's been here 6 months. No record before Chicago Memorial. Don't you find that suspicious?" Olivia turned to face the Manhattan skyline. For once, the view failed to center her. "Find me everything on Nathan Reed," she said, "and restart the search for Sophie's nanny. I'm going to take her to school tomorrow myself." The arrangement caused immediate uproar. Senior executives whispered in elevators. HR submitted concern memos. The director of security suggested background checks and liability waivers. Olivia overrode them all with the blunt instrument of her authority. Nathan started coming to Sophie's suite after his shift ended. No structured lessons, no therapy techniques. He taught her to water the plants on the terrace, explaining how roots need both water and air to breathe. He showed her how to organize her books by color, turning chaos into rainbow order. He brought his guitar, hadn't played in years, but for this he made an exception and taught her simple chords. And he listened. When Sophie talked about her father, Nathan didn't offer platitudes about heaven or time-healing wounds. He just nodded and said, "Missing someone never really stops, but it can become softer, like a stone in your pocket. You always know it's there, but it doesn't cut anymore." Sophie understood that. One afternoon, Olivia came to collect Sophie for dinner and found her daughter asleep on the couch, her head resting on Nathan's shoulder. He'd been reading to her from a book about constellations. He looked up, finger to his lips, the universal gesture for silence. Olivia stood frozen in the doorway, watching her daughter sleep peacefully for the first time in months, and felt something shift inside her. Not attraction, not yet. Something more fundamental. Recognition. This man had given her daughter something she'd been desperately searching for, the simple gift of being understood. 2 weeks later, disaster struck during a music class Olivia had arranged for both girls at Sophie's school. Halfway through, "Mary had a little lamb," Mia began coughing violently. The coughs transformed into desperate wheezes as she clutched at her chest. "Her inhaler!" the teacher cried, searching Mia's backpack. "It's empty," Sophie said, holding up the medication. "It made no sound when I shook it." Olivia rushed forward as Mia's lips began turning blue. "Call 911, she ordered, her crisis management training kicking in. The teacher frantically dialed while Olivia lowered Mia to the floor, elevating her head. She checked the girl's airway. Constricted. Her breathing, shallow and increasingly desperate. Pulse, rapid, thready. These were the signs of severe respiratory distress that Olivia recognized from a first aid course, but had never expected to use. "Where's her father?" Olivia demanded, panic rising as Mia's breathing became more labored. "Maintenance call on 37, someone answered. "Get him now," Olivia shouted, holding Mia's small hand. "Stay with us, sweetheart. Help is coming." Sophie stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. "Like Daddy," she whispered. "She's going away like Daddy." "No," Olivia said fiercely. "Not this time." The door burst open and Nathan ran in, his face ashen when he saw his daughter on the floor. "She can't breathe," Olivia said unnecessarily. What happened next would change everything. Without hesitation, Nathan grabbed a water bottle and a ballpoint pen from a nearby desk. With practiced precision, he disassembled the pen, removed the ink tube, and knelt beside his daughter. "Hold her still," he instructed Olivia, his voice transformed, authoritative, confident. Gone was the janitor. In his place stood a surgeon making life-or-death decisions with the calm certainty of someone who'd done it thousands of times. "What are you doing?" Olivia whispered, watching him sterilize the pen casing with bottled water. "Creating an airway," he replied, his focus absolute. "Her throat is completely constricted." Before Olivia could process what was happening, Nathan performed an emergency tracheotomy with the pen casing. His hands moved with impossible steadiness, finding the precise location in Mia's throat, making a small incision, and inserting the makeshift breathing tube. The procedure took less than 30 seconds, time that would have meant life or death in an operating room. Color slowly returned to Mia's face as oxygen flowed through the improvised airway. Nathan monitored her pulse, his fingers pressed against her neck with practiced pressure. When paramedics arrived minutes later, they found a janitor performing medical procedures no janitor should know. "Jesus," one paramedic muttered as they took over. "Who did this?" Nathan stepped back, his hands bloody. "I did. Are you a doctor?" Nathan's eyes met Olivia's over the gurney. "I was." In the hospital waiting room, Olivia sat beside Nathan. Both silent as doctors worked to stabilize Mia. Sophie had been collected by Eleanor, who'd arrived with remarkable speed after Olivia's panicked call. "Mayo Clinic," Olivia finally said. "Youngest attending trauma surgeon in their history." Nathan didn't ask how she knew. "You ran a background check. After today's..." Procedure, can you blame me? No, he admitted. You saved her life. For now, Nathan said bitterly, until the next attack, until I can't afford the right medication, until the system fails her like it failed her mother. A doctor approached them, clipboard in hand. Mr. Reed, your daughter is stable. We'd like to keep her overnight for observation. Nathan nodded, his shoulders sagging with relief. There's the matter of insurance, the doctor continued awkwardly. Olivia stood. Morgan Healthcare Solutions is covering all expenses, she said, her CEO voice brooking no argument. Please ensure Miss Reed receives the best care available, including the strongest possible preventive medications. When the doctor left, Nathan's expression was unreadable. Why would you do that? Instead of answering, Olivia opened her tablet and turned it toward him. On the screen was a file, his file. You didn't just leave medicine. You were forced out after filing a complaint against a healthcare insurance provider that denied experimental treatment to your wife. Nathan's jaw clenched. She had a rare form of aggressive leukemia. The treatment had shown promising results in trials, but they deemed it experimental and refused coverage. By the time I could raise enough money independently, it was too late. The insurance provider was a subsidiary of Blackstone Medical, Olivia continued. Yes, which was acquired by Morgan Healthcare Solutions 3 years ago, Olivia said, her voice steady despite the growing horror in her chest. Under my husband's direction, the silence between them stretched, filled with implications neither wanted to voice. Did you know, Olivia finally asked, when you took the job here, did you know who I was? Not at first, Nathan admitted. Not until I saw Sophie, the resemblance to her father's photos in the press. So what is this? Revenge? Getting close to my daughter? Nathan's laugh was hollow. If I wanted revenge, I'd have taken your offer of triple salary and sued the company later. Then why? I needed a job with health insurance for Mia, he said simply. And when I met Sophie, I saw a child in pain. That's all. Olivia studied him, searching for deception and finding none. My husband killed himself, she said abruptly. Nathan's head snapped up. The plane crash wasn't an accident, Olivia continued, her voice tight. The investigation found he disabled certain safety protocols. He left a note in his personal email that I found weeks later. He couldn't live with some of the decisions the company had made. She met Nathan's eyes directly. I think he knew about Sarah, your wife, not personally, but about cases like hers. There were dozens. Morgan Healthcare Solutions acquired Blackstone specifically for their data on patients with rare conditions. Data they'd collected while denying treatment. They used my wife's dying body as a research opportunity, Nathan said, his voice dangerously soft. And Matthew couldn't bear the weight of it once he understood what was happening, Olivia whispered. He tried to change policies from within, but was overruled by the board. By Marcus. Nathan closed his eyes. So both our spouses were casualties of the same corporate decisions. The irony hung between them, painful in its symmetry. The article appeared in a tabloid the following week, but spread like wildfire through more reputable outlets. Billionaire CEO's secret romance with former doctor-turned-janitor. The photos were grainy but damning. Olivia and Nathan at the hospital, at the school, entering her apartment building. The story was garbage, full of made-up quotes and insinuations. But garbage has a way of contaminating everything it touches. Olivia's phone exploded with calls from board members, investors, PR consultants. The company's stock took a minor hit on speculation about her stability just weeks before the crucial IPO. Nathan became collateral damage. Reporters showed up at his apartment. Photographers followed him to Mia's school. Co-workers who'd never spoken to him suddenly had opinions about his character, his intentions. The worst came from within the company. Marcus Holt, who'd wanted Olivia's position since Matthew's death, called an impromptu board meeting. He presented a narrative carefully constructed from truth and lies. The janitor was manipulating the CEO through her vulnerable daughter. The relationship was inappropriate. The company's reputation was at stake. He proposed Olivia take a leave of absence to focus on family matters. Olivia fought back with everything she had, but the pressure was immense. The vote was 7-6 in her favor, hardly the resounding support she'd expected. The margin was too thin for comfort. That evening, Nathan came to her office. Sophie was asleep upstairs, and Mia was recovering at Nathan's sister's place upstate. "I'm leaving," he said without preamble. "Tonight." "Running proves their narrative," Olivia replied. "Staying destroys yours." Nathan placed an envelope on her desk. "I wrote this for Sophie. Explains that I'm not abandoning her, that some people are scared of things they don't understand, that she's stronger than she knows." He met her eyes directly. "I'm not in your world, Olivia. I never was. You have to choose your company or whatever this is between us. That's not fair." "Neither is life," he said, turning to leave. "Sophie needs a stable mother more than she needs me." After he left, Olivia stood alone in her office, the envelope heavy in her hand, the weight of his impossible choice heavier still on her heart. Marcus Holt's victory was short-lived. 3 days after Nathan's departure, Olivia called Eleanor to her office. On her desk were stacks of files, internal documents, emails, memos dating back 5 years. "I've been doing some research," Olivia said, her voice calm but her eyes fierce, "about Blackstone Medical and their denial of experimental treatments." Eleanor sat, her expression grave. And I found a pattern. Denials weren't medical decisions. They were financial ones. Patients with certain rare conditions were systematically rejected regardless of their prognosis. "That's standard industry practice," Eleanor noted. "Unfortunate but legal." "What isn't legal," Olivia continued, "is that after patients were denied, their data was used in research without consent. Research that Morgan Healthcare Solutions later monetized." She pushed forward a specific file. "Sarah Reed's case was one of dozens. Her genetic data is in our vaccine research." Eleanor paled. "Does Nathan know?" "No, but Marcus does." Olivia's eyes hardened. "He was head of research integration during the Blackstone acquisition. He personally selected which patient data to incorporate. That's why Matthew—" Eleanor couldn't finish the sentence. Olivia nodded. "I think so. And now Marcus is using Nathan and me to divert attention from the real scandal, one that could tank not just our IPO, but the entire company." "What will you do?" Olivia stood, smoothing her skirt with steady hands. "First, I'm going to find Nathan. Then we're going to fix this. All of it." The charity event was an annual gala raising funds for children's health care, ironically sponsored in part by Morgan Healthcare Solutions. Olivia attended because it was expected, wearing a designer gown and a practiced smile, all while carrying the weight of her discoveries about the company her husband had helped build. The evening was nearly over when the children's showcase began. Young patients from the hospital's pediatric ward performed pieces they'd learned that year. As Olivia prepared to leave, her phone buzzed with a message from Eleanor. "Stay. There's a surprise performance." A small figure walked onto the stage. Sophie. Olivia froze mid-step. Her daughter, who had barely spoken since Nathan and Mia left, was sitting at the piano, her tiny hands poised above the keys. Sophie looked terrified but determined. She leaned toward the microphone. "This song is called Blackbird. Dr. Reed taught it to me. It was his wife's favorite. He said music can help when words aren't enough." Sophie's fingers touched the keys. The melody emerged, hesitant but clear, like sunlight through storm clouds. She made mistakes, paused, but kept going with a resilience Olivia had forgotten her daughter possessed. Halfway through, a guitar joined from backstage. Nathan walked out, instrument in hand, supporting Sophie with gentle chords. The audience fell silent, captivated by this unexpected duet between a child finding her voice and a man who'd lost everything but his ability to heal. Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she watched them together, her daughter and the man who had reached her when no one else could. When the last note faded, Sophie looked up at Nathan with pure adoration. He knelt beside her, whispering something that made her smile, that rare, precious smile that had been absent for so long. Sophie took the microphone again, her voice stronger now. My daddy died because he was sad about people who didn't get help when they were sick. Dr. Reed's wife died because she couldn't get medicine. But now my mom is going to make it better. She always fixes things. The simple faith in her daughter's voice pierced Olivia's heart. In the third row, Marcus shifted uncomfortably as nearby attendees, major donors and hospital board members, turned to look at him, then at the stage where a child spoke truth with devastating clarity. Olivia moved without conscious decision, walking up the steps to the stage. Nathan stood to face her, his expression guarded yet hopeful. Don't go, Olivia said, her voice captured by the microphone and carried to every corner of the room. Don't leave us. I don't care what people think about me or my reputation or the company. She took a deep breath. You taught me how to be human again. Sophie needs you. I need you. And together we're going to fix what's broken. All of it. Nathan searched her face. Are you sure? Once this moment is public, there's no taking it back. I'm sure, Olivia replied, her voice steady despite the cameras now recording from the back of the room. I choose this. I choose us. Sophie launched herself at both of them, wrapping her small arms around their legs. Does this mean Mia can come back too? From the back of the auditorium, Eleanor Wright watched with satisfaction as Marcus Holt slipped toward a side exit, already on his phone. She had positioned journalists strategically throughout the room, ensuring this moment and the questions about patient data that would follow would make headlines by morning. Sometimes healing required breaking things open first. 1 year later, Olivia sat in a different office, smaller, less prestigious, but filled with natural light and the sound of children's laughter. The sign on her door read, Director Matthew Sarah Foundation for Rare Disease Research. The transition hadn't been easy. After the gala, the story had exploded. Investigative journalists uncovered the full extent of Blackstone's and Morgan Healthcare Solutions' ethical violations. The IPO was postponed indefinitely while investigations took place. Olivia had resigned as CEO, but stayed on the board, using her position to push through reforms while facing intense scrutiny herself. There had been lawsuits, depositions, late nights of sifting through documents, and early mornings of damage control. Marcus had hired the best attorneys money could buy, but even they couldn't counter the testimony of dozens of families whose loved ones had been denied care while their medical data was harvested without consent. Through it all, Nathan had stood beside her. Not because he'd forgiven the system that had failed Sarah. That wound might never fully heal, but because he understood something fundamental. Healing and justice weren't mutually exclusive. The foundation, funded by Olivia's personal fortune and a substantial settlement from Morgan Healthcare Solutions, supported families affected by rare diseases, providing both financial assistance and research funding. Nathan directed the medical research division, using his surgical expertise and personal experience to advocate for patients like Sarah. His medical license had been reinstated after a review found the previous sanctions were retaliatory. Through her office window, Olivia watched Nathan guide a young resident through a research protocol, his hands moving with the same careful precision she'd first noticed when he saved Mia's life. He no longer wore the invisible cloak of the janitor. His confidence had returned, though tempered now with humility born from suffering. Sophie and Mia burst into the office, both carrying sheet music from their piano lesson. "Mom, we learned a new duet," Sophie announced, her voice confident and bright, so different from the silent, wounded child of a year ago. "Mr. Henderson says we're the best students he's ever had," Mia added, her breathing clear and strong thanks to new medication developed by the foundation. "That's wonderful," Olivia said, genuinely meaning it. "You can play it for us at dinner tonight." As the girls rushed out to practice, Eleanor entered, carrying a newspaper. "Have you seen this?" she asked, placing it on Olivia's desk. The headline read, "Morgan Healthcare Solutions launches patient advocacy division under new leadership." "They're finally learning," Eleanor noted. "Sometimes the biggest act of courage isn't climbing higher. It's being willing to start over and build something better." Olivia nodded, watching Nathan through the window. He looked up, saw her watching, and smiled. The kind of smile that said home and safety and love. That evening, as they walked home together, Sophie and Mia racing ahead to spot the first stars appearing over the city, Nathan took Olivia's hand. "Do you ever miss it?" he asked. "The penthouse, the power, the view?" Olivia considered this seriously. "Sometimes I miss the efficiency, the ability to make things happen with a single call. But I don't miss the cost," she said, squeezing his hand. "I don't miss the person I was becoming." Ahead of them, Sophie pointed out constellations to Mia, reciting the stories Nathan had taught her. The girls' laughter carried back to them on the evening breeze. "When Sarah died," Nathan said quietly, "I thought healing meant forgetting, moving on. I was wrong. Healing isn't about leaving the pain behind. It's about finding a way to carry it that doesn't destroy you." Olivia thought about Matthew, about the note he'd left, about the courage it had taken him to face the truth and the despair that had followed. She wished he could have held on long enough to see this. Two broken families, creating something whole from their shared pain. "I think that's what we're doing," she said. "For Sophie and Mia, for ourselves, even for Matthew and Sarah." In the end, the impossible thing wasn't that a doctor-turned-janitor could reach a CEO's daughter. The impossible thing was that in a world obsessed with status and wealth and keeping people in their designated places, healing found a way. And sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't protecting what you've built, it's tearing it down to build something true.